Hello and welcome to Lemsley Speaks, Lemsley Recommends. This video is not about me bigging myself up. No, Lemsley Recommends is all about championing the efforts of quality poets and writers out there in the world of social media poetry. If poetry is your thing, if poetry is your bag, then subscribe to this channel, like this video. Please. In between my recommends videos, I will be banging on about myself and presenting my own poems because they're mint. But for right now, let's draw our attention to these two poets that I love very much on Instagram and see what they're all about. This week's recommendations are Tahirarehman and Colin Tan. You can find Tyra on Instagram at Tahirarehmanpoet, and you can find Colin at Juxtaproser. Now we're going to start off with Tahirarehman. I know Tyra personally. I've had the privilege of working with her on some community outreach poetry work. I've seen her speak live at spoken word events, and it is something that you need to see as well. Where do you start with Tyra? She's got her own poetry podcast, which is ranking really highly in the iTunes poetry podcast genre segment. Tahirarehmanpoet. That is the name of her podcast. But she's absolutely smashing it. She talks about her own work and her own craft as a poet, but she also interviews other poets who are out there doing it for real. I've learned an awful lot about the craft, about the art, about how getting your work out there, and as if to reinforce it anymore, just how amazing poetry can be. So that podcast is worth checking out for sure. Tyra has already released 2 collections of poetry. One of her books is called Inspirational Quotes from the Journey of Reality. Tyra's second book, Mirages to Reality, is an absolutely wonderful read. What's really remarkable about this collection of poetry is that in between each poem there is a kind of poet's commentary. Mirages are the difficulties that we face in life, the barriers that we have to overcome, and Tyra delves into this with her poetry very openly, very honestly and very frankly, and talks about the learning that can take place by overcoming each mirage as we continue on our trip towards reality, which for me is about self-understanding.
It's lovely.
Check this out. Temporary shine. It scattered like the imagination of rain towards the autumn leaves, crunching the joy. It ate their life and their sound. It favoured me, like the plays of life. Today we are here, and tomorrow we are gone. It held me like the roots of soil to a plant, but then told me that it will let me go, that it may kill my petals like the prickles of a rose. It enlightened me like the fire to the candle. It then left me burnt like the wax from the candle. I tried not to hope beyond the limitation, yet the temporary shines fooled me. Check out that simile. It held me like the roots of soil to a plant. There's something very safe and secure in this idea of being held. There's something natural, very, very natural. On one hand, the plant is growing, but the earth is heavy and dense like the soil pulling it down. And that captures for me what Mirages to Reality is all about. It's a very natural process that we're all going through. We are all growing, but we are all heavily grounded and pulled back. And it's about marrying those two things together. And there are several times whilst reading Tyra's work that it just makes you reflect on your own situation and go, yeah, I can keep on moving forward. I highly recommend that as a very, very good read. It's not empathic, it's empathetic. You learn something every day. But Tyra is a very empathetic person. She's very caring, she's very compassionate. You can see that in the way that she works, and you can hear that in her words. So a lot of her Instagram posts are very motivational, got kindness and caring at their heart. You can't help but feel a lovely warmth whenever you read Tyra's work. She can relate to people from all walks of life. I saw that when I was working with her in a community outreach project. Don't think that this is all lovey-dovey. Tyra knows about difficulty, and she can express that beautifully, as expressed here in this recent post. As the end to his roll-up is the only spark to his life, friends only turn up when they want a companion by their side for another moment in that world. Tyra understands that life is hard, difficult things happen, and truly what I take from Tyra's work is that empathy will help you relate to everyone. Check her out, man. Check her out. Check out her website, which is www.tahirarehman.com. You can find her on Facebook at Tahirarehmanpoet. Support her. Buy her books. Give her a read. You won't regret it. You can find Tyra's books on Amazon or on her website, tahirarehman.com/books. Okay, so you're a budding poet trying to build up a bit of a following for your writing on Instagram, and you want to connect with people who are doing it good. All right? If that's the case, then you need to search for @Juxtaproser. That will take you to the works of the man, Colin Tan. Okay, whenever I read Colin's work, I feel cool. His tone is raw, it's punchy, it's gritty, it's a bit Bukowski, it's sexy. He uses his words to create an incredibly visual world for the reader, almost cinematic. Now, Colin, as well as being a poet, is also a writer. He tells me that he is 80% through his debut novel, which is going to be a surrealist piece of fiction. And if it's anything like what he puts on his Instagram page, then that is going to be the bomb. And I can't wait to read it. There's an element of danger in Colin's use of language. I always feel like I'm kind of on the edge when I'm reading what he is writing. Take, for instance, She Took Me for a Ride. For me, it's a piece of narrative poetry, but knowing that Colin is into writing a story, perhaps he approached it as a piece of narrative, but there's some wonderful bits of internal rhyming there. So for me, being primarily a poet, it's narrative poetry. She took me for a ride. I headed outside my building and there she was, straddled across this huge black Yakuza bike, not unlike how she straddled me the night before, with the same glint in her eyes that sparkled on the ring she had through her bottom lip, raven hair waving at me like confetti in the wind. There's plenty more of that in that post. You have to check it out. It's sensual, it's smoky. Terrible adjective for a poetry critic to be talking about, but it takes me back to this kind of like film noir, cinematic kind of place. Like confetti in the wind. You know, a second ago, this girl is riding and straddling a superbike in a very steamy image that conjures up the sexual connections of the night before. And then we move to like confetti in the wind, which is so airy and light. And that's what I really like about Colin's work, is he can take you on a journey line to line. You don't know where you're going next, but when you get there, you're going to feel it. Sometimes Colin will introduce his poems by putting a very retro-looking black and white image along with the post. So often when I visit his Instagram page, I'm hooked on this poem before I've even read the first letter of the piece. Here we've got The Beat Swings. Look at this, it's taking me back to like 1960s America, just very cool. Tin sardines, very pop art, albeit black and white. Barbarella in Japanese, yes please. It's just cool. I really need a better adjective than cool. Have a look at the feedback Colin's getting. Very strong rhythm here. The beat swings. You know, if a poet is already making people identify how good he is at rhythm, then you know you're onto a winner. Tin sardines, inspired. Barbarella in Japanese. That last line floored me. I relate to that an awful lot with Colin's work. It's high impact. You know, that's a sexy image, but it's not your everyday orthodox sexy. It's curveball, it's left field. That is what Colin Tan's work is all about. Talking of Barbarella in Japanese, check out this for a quote. She sways and swings and floats as they gloat to the hungry little dogs in the dark corners. It's just gritty and sexy. I probably said sexy a lot too much, but Colin, stop writing sexy poems. People stop calling it sexy. Colin's work is tasty and it hooks you in quick. But don't think that he's a one-trick pony. He can do profundity as well. The Herd. Ah, the contrived passion that beats from your bleeding heart. The pursuit of liberty through vanity and self-promotion yet again becomes the pursuit of popularity yet again. Call me a brother, call me a sister, but remember, family is for life. So there you go. You're scrolling through your Instagram, your Facebook, your Twitter or whatever, and you come across something like that which just reminds you of the things that are important in life. And Colin's got his eye on stuff like that. It's not about just perpetually chasing popularity and getting those likes and those subscribers. By the way, please like and subscribe. But you get a beautifully varied range of work from Colin. One thing that you can guarantee is that it's not going to mess around. It is going to be high impact and it is going to hook you in fast. Bear in mind as well, he's 80% through his debut novel. You need to be in there at the ground floor, getting in as soon as he launches that, whenever it may be. But for now, the only place you can find his work is on Instagram. So head over to @Juxtaproser and follow Colin Tan. Thank you ever so much for listening. The next video that I will be launching will be promoting a piece of my own poetry that's inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and by the murder of George Floyd, because that is some serious stuff that really needs addressing. Head on, don't shy away. If you'd like to be featured on Lemsley Speaks, Lemsley Recommends, then leave me a comment below. Obviously, like and subscribe to the video, otherwise you can sod off! I'm not even bothered! Alternatively, direct message me on Instagram @Lemsley Novels. And in the meantime, much love.